Assalamu alaikum ladies and gentlemen, this is your host Shafaq Rizvi with another episode of CXO In Focus, and today we have with us in our web studio Mr. Ammar Bin Mujeeb, who is the IT head at Dubai Islamic Bank Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum sir. How are you doing?
Good.
Welcome to our web studio.
Thanks.
And thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
Alright, before we proceed, can you give a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. As you've already introduced me, I'm Ammar Bin Mujeeb. I'm currently heading IT at Dubai Islamic Bank. I've been in the bank for the last 7 years. My experience has been more than 17 years in Pakistan and abroad. I've primarily been working on solution implementation for the banking industry. You could say that I've worked on both sides of the table, where I've been on the implementer side, where I've worked for systems implementers, and I've basically deployed solutions in the Middle East and in Pakistan. And then for the last 7-8 years, I've been on the customer side, where I've been with banks. Recent engagement, obviously, with Dubai Islamic Bank. So my core area of expertise, obviously, is deploying solutions for banks.
Okay.
And that's where my experience has been in the last 7 years, where I've deployed different systems in DIB.
Okay, all right. Okay, so being the IT head at Dubai Islamic Bank, how do you see the role of information technology, or how do you see information technology shaping up the business processes in the local banking industry?
Technology plays a major role there. Whether it comes to the turnaround time on a particular transaction, or it comes to the kind of services you can offer to your customer, or it comes to giving your customer one bank experience, that's that electronic banking, all of that. For every service that is being offered by the bank, there is somewhere or the other technologies involved. On the other part, when it comes to banks, there is always a lot of involvement of controls. There's a lot of involvement on the regulatory framework. There's a lot of involvement on decision making. So all of these areas require technology.
All right. So since you have expertise in deploying solutions, in your opinion, what should be the considerations for the IT executives while deploying solutions at their organizations or banks in the local industry?
The first thing you need to do is you need to understand what is your business requirement, what is the actual role that system is going to play, and select the right system. It is not always the best system in the world that is going to fix your solution, fix your problem. It's always the right fit. So the most important thing is that you understand the requirements well, you understand the business well, and then you go select, evaluate, and come up with the right solution. That's the most important part.
All right. So having vast experience in project management, application implementation, system development and integration, and business process consultancy, which of the tasks are most challenging or difficult from these two, application implementation or system integration? And are there any risks associated with them?
Okay. There are two approaches. Obviously, when you go and you want to deploy a solution somewhere, you have a requirement. There are two approaches. The first approach is you go look for a product from the market, whether it's an international market or from the local market, or you go and develop it in-house. So strategies for both of them are very different. The requirement from a bank HR perspective are different for both of them. When it comes to third-party solution deployment, then obviously your team has to be more project management oriented, and they need to deploy the solution, control the vendor, coordinate with them properly, and make sure that the project is managed in a professional manner, and that's how you deploy it. If you do software development in-house, then obviously project management is there, but on top of that, you need to have a complete full-fledged development center in place. You can't do it half-heartedly. You can't simply say that, okay, I'll keep a few people and then maybe develop something in-house and move forward. You can't do that. You need to have a focus. You need to have proper setup in place, because once you start in-house development, that means your core business is not software development. Your core business is banking. So you are primarily slightly moving away from your core business. Having said that, it's not very uncommon that people have done that. In fact, a lot of good systems that are deployed in some of the banks are developed in-house. But they have a well thought of strategy and a devoted team to work on that. They have proper processes in place. They have proper documentation in place. Because obviously, if you have you've developed a solution in house, and you have people who might be going, and then you have new people coming in, you have to have a proper infrastructure in place. You need to have proper documentation in place. You need to have a proper software development methodology in place for you to do in-house development.
Right.
Some of the banks tend to shy away from it because obviously, as I said before, that's not their core business. But from a cost perspective, it always comes out to be cheaper to do in-house versus go for a third party. So there are always pros and cons to both. So it all depends on what your strategy is. It all depends on what your direction is. You have to make sure that they are in line.
Challenges are everywhere.
Challenges are everywhere.
All right. You were previously involved in setting up of a data center. Could you brief us about some of the potential challenges that one can come across while doing that?
Setting up a data center is a big challenge because there are a lot of components. There is power, the biggest issue in Pakistan. There is power, there is redundancy, there is environment control, operations. So there are so many things involved in setting a data center that you need a full-fledged an expert first of all, and a proper project manager to run and set it up. There are different categories of data centers. You could have a tier 4 data center, you could have a tier 3 data center. There are now certifications available where you could set up a data center and then ask one of the agencies to come in and certify your data center and say that yes, this is a tier 3 or tier 4 certified setup. Why do we get it done? That's because the more resilient it is, the better service you're able to offer at the end of the day to the.
So, since you have worked abroad as well, how would you compare the IT infrastructure of local industry with that of the international market?
I think we are very much at par in terms of the level of systems deployed in Pakistan.
Okay.
In terms of investment, obviously there's a lot of difference between a typical Pakistan organization versus an organization that works, let's say, in the Middle East. That's primarily because they're bigger setups, currency differences. They're able to afford few things that we might not be able to afford, and we might get a bigger hit on our P&L versus a bank in the Middle East. So sometimes that is a challenge, and sometimes excuse me, that's where we differ from the international market. In terms of solution deployment, obviously Pakistan has its own challenges in terms of deploying international solutions, because there are sometimes challenges of people coming to Pakistan for providing support or installations or providing consultancy to us. So we have to try and either stick to one of the local partners, or we have to try and stick to systems that have been developed locally. So sometimes that also creates a difference between the kind of solutions deployed here and how it is done internationally. The other difference that is there is the infrastructure. We've come a long way. There used to be a time where to have a connectivity in a remote site was almost impossible. Today, obviously, we are able to cover a lot of our branches, and more, as far as most of the banks are concerned. The smaller banks, they are all online. The larger banks like HBL, MCB and all of that, obviously they have certain branches which are in very remote places, and you might not have the infrastructure to have them online. But the rest of the banks enjoy the facility of having those online branches, and that infrastructure of network connectivity and everything has come up very aggressively in Pakistan, has improved significantly. But still we are a bit behind when it comes to the international market.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for being here, and that was pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much.
This was Mr. Ammar Bin Mujeeb, who was talking about the IT situation in the local FSI industry. This is your host Shafaq Rizvi signing out. For more interesting and exciting interviews, keep watching CXO In Focus.